Penn State enters their 2023 campaign by reigniting an old rivalry from their independent days. What challenges does West Virginia bring to the table on the debut of Big Ten Saturday night? Justin Couz Walker joins me from Couz's Corner to talk everything Mountaineers and Nittany Lions.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
Boy, this is a game that's very interesting to me. And the more I kind of get information and the more I kind of break it down, the more interested I get. And right now I am pleased to be joined by the host, the founder, the creator, the really everything West Virginia on YouTube. Justin Couz Walker from Couz's Corner joins us right now. Justin, great to have you on for this preview of Penn State and West Virginia. Let's start with this first. On paper, this appears to be a mismatch. Penn State is a college football playoff caliber team. The debut of NBC's Big Ten Saturday night. Neil Brown is on the hot seat. Does this, all of that, you put it all together, but does that make West Virginia dangerous coming into this matchup?
Well, first of all, Ted, thank you for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here. But yes, I think it does to a degree because, you know, Penn State could very easily overlook West Virginia. You've got all these prognosticators out here saying we're going to go 1-11 or 2-10 or finish last in the Big 12. And Garrett Green's the worst quarterback in the Power 5. I mean, list after list after list. West Virginia has a very big chip on their shoulder, and that's always dangerous for a team to come into a game with a big chip on their shoulder. And it's a game where I really don't think West Virginia has a lot to lose. I know it's odd to say the first game of the season, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at where this program is compared to Penn State, if they lose this game, that could really hurt their expectations for the season, right? Whereas West Virginia can lose this game, and their expectations are still on the table, right? It's a non-conference game. The expectations for them, at least externally outside the program, obviously, are not real high. So I think they're going to go out there and play with a chip on their shoulder and give it their all, man, and lay all their cards on the table, so to speak.
Right now, as you said, all the pressures on Penn State, the expectations, Big Ten championship, college football playoff, especially Correct. As it pertains to this matchup. So maybe West Virginia going to play a little bit loose. First start for Drew Allar. We'll get to quarterbacks in just a minute. But here's something that really stuck out to me in the notes that you really provided me. We kind of broke down offline here. 5 returning offensive line starters for West Virginia. In today's day and age of the transfer portal, that doesn't happen all that often. I'm very excited for this matchup. I'm very excited about the West Virginia offensive line versus guys like Adisa Isaac, Chop Robinson, Danny Dennis Sutton is going to get in there in that pass rush. This is a really, really good pass rush for Penn State. How do you think this West Virginia offensive line kind of stacks up with these great pass rushers of the Nittany Lions?
Well, it's obviously going to be a huge test. Penn State's really good up front. Well, they're really good everywhere, to be honest. I've been researching and breaking this team down, and it's hard to find a weakness, but especially on defense. But I really think our offensive line is going to be the strength of our team. Like you said, we have 5 returning starters, 133 snaps, 133 starts between them. We've got Zach Frazier in the middle, who's an All-American center. We've got 2 tackles in Wyatt Milam and Doug Nestor, who will likely play on Sundays as well. And they you know, Wyatt Milam, especially at left tackle, has played against some really high draft picks before. Which Chop Robinson is expected to be, and he's held his own, and he's done well against them. So I think he'll be up for the challenge. Is he going to win every one-on-one battle? Absolutely not. But I think he will hold his own and really give Robinson and these other guys up front a run for their money.
Now, these guys are going to keep on coming all night long. Is there anything West Virginia can do within their offensive scheme? Is there anything they can really do schematically to try to neutralize these great rush ends that Penn State has?
Well, I think, they've went out and purposely got some extra tight ends, number one. We have a lot of tight ends, and now all of them aren't going to play, but we do have some good blocking tight ends. They probably will use 2 running backs at times in the game, whereas as in the past they've not done that much because we have a really deep running back room, so he will have multiple running backs on the field at the same time. They may even have some 12 personnel. You might even see some 22 personnel at times on the field with 2 backs and 2 tight ends. So I think those things will be needed in this game because this is probably going to be the best defense. I don't even know if probably. This will be the best defense West Virginia plays all year.
Yeah, people are saying it's the best defense in the Big Ten, and
Right.
when you factor in the Michigans and the Iowas of the world, that is definitely saying something right there for the Nittany Lions. Let's talk about quarterbacks because both Neil Brown and James Franklin are pretty similar in the fact that they have a guy that we all know is probably going to start. It's Drew Allar for Penn State, the 5-star out of the state of Ohio that's been hyped up now for a few years that a lot of people think can be really good and maybe take this Penn State program to the next level. A lot of people said, well, Sean Clifford was here and Drew Allar can really take us here to that next level. West Virginia is in a very similar situation as well, aren't they?
Yeah, correct. We've got Garrett Green, a quarterback. He's been a backup here for 3 years, behind guys like Jarrett Dagey, last year JT Daniels, supplanted JT Daniels last year as the starter for the last 2 games of the season. Came in relief of him in the Oklahoma game and ended up winning the game, leading a comeback and a victory. So he is experienced, but he's never been the guy yet. And just like Franklin, Neil Brown has not announced him as the starter, but all indications from the media, from anyone who's watched practice, and listen to the press conferences and based on reading between the lines, everyone expects Garrett Green to be the guy, to be the starter going into this game. But, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a short leash because we've got a redshirt freshman 4-star recruit behind him in Nico Marchiol, who's very talented. So, don't be surprised. I don't think they'll yank him in this game necessarily, but if he's not producing 2 or 3 games in, they might make a change.
I mean, when I look at this matchup, I see Penn State. We got some good secondaries in the Big Ten. Like I mentioned Iowa, I mentioned Michigan. It's the top defenses. They also have some of the top secondaries, not only in our league, but across all of college football. Kalen King and Johnny Dixon are as good as it gets at the corner spot on each side. There's going to be a lot of teams out there, even the more explosive teams throughout the conference and throughout all of college football, that are going to have trouble throwing the football on Penn State. Is there anything West Virginia can do to try to combat that? Are West Virginia going to throw out 3-4 wide in terms of deep on the depth chart to be able to maybe get favorable matchups in the slot as well? Or how do you see West Virginia going about the matchups with guys like Dixon and King out on the perimeter on defense?
Yeah, that's the matchup I definitely am I'm concerned about all matchups in this game, but that one probably concerns me the most because we do have a lot of question marks at wide receiver, a lot of new faces, a lot of transfers, a lot of guys who are being asked to step up and produce more than they did a year ago. Even a couple of true freshmen that we expect to play in this game. But I think they need to get the tight ends involved a little bit, to be honest with you. Create some disadvantages. We have a 6'7" tight end transfer, Cole Taylor from LSU. Get him involved in the passing game. Maybe he can take advantage of some size matchups in the middle with some safeties or some linebackers, and then try to just schematically figure out ways to get your guys the ball in space. I anticipate they'll use a lot of screen game, try to get multiple blockers out in front of some of their best athletes. And I tell you what, man, throwing the ball deep is going to be tough. But that's why in this game, I'm glad Neil Brown's going to have a running quarterback, a mobile quarterback for the first time in his tenure. And if he can get outside and get some yards with his feet, or even up the middle for that matter, on some broken plays, force that defense to kind of pay attention to him a little more, suck in a little bit, maybe that'll create some room over the top. And also the play action game obviously is going to come into play a lot. So the key, basically, they have to run the football well.
Yeah.
West Virginia has to run the football well. That's going to be the key to this game for them. If they have any chance at all, they have got to be able to move the football with C.J. Donaldson and those backs.
Couple of things I kind of want to break off of that as well. I mentioned mobile quarterbacks actually yesterday in my preview of Ohio State, Indiana. Indiana has David Jackson. He's kind of a mobile quarterback. When you have those great rush defensive ends, Ohio State is another team that has some great guys up front. you need to maybe try to neutralize them with that quarterback run game. Sometimes that can get
Correct.
these guys on. If you allow these guys like Adisa Isaac and Chop Robinson, if you allow them to just get in a 3-point stance and just pin their ears back every time, and it's a drop back pass, they know what's coming every time. But a mobile quarterback can kind of get that kind of going and get them off balance as well. Talk about that run game right now. Let's kind of transition to that, because no PJ Mustipher in the middle now for Penn State. A lot of people, when they look at this defense, they see great rush defensive ends. They see great linebackers with guys like Curtis Jacobs, with Abdul Carter. They see, we already mentioned the secondary, but it's right up the middle for West Virginia. Do you think this stable of backs for the Mountaineers can maybe get a little bit going up the middle in this run game?
I do. Mainly, number one, like I mentioned earlier, we have an All-American center in Zach Frazier. He's going to be able to move some guys off the ball. And we've got a back in C.J. Donaldson who's 6'2", about 240, 235, 240. He's hard to tackle, and he gets the hole fast. And when he starts downhill, man, he's gone. He can. He's a hard guy to bring down. So, and he's shifty too. He's shiftier than he looks. He can make you miss. So, and then we've got some guys behind him who are totally different backs: Jalen Anderson, Justin Johnson. We've got a true freshman who everybody's really high on, named Jaheim White, who's about a 5'7", 5'8" guy who's really shifty. All these guys are very talented. Most of them are 4-star, or 2 of them are 4-star guys. And I think if West Virginia has a chance to run the ball, that's where they're going to have to attack. Is that, and also, you're talking about the quarterback running game as well. Penn State loves to rush those edge ends, man. And maybe you can take advantage of that aggressiveness a little bit. Let them rush, and then boom, you bust right by them and run for a long one. Try to get to the second level and get your quarterback one-on-one, or your running backs in some cases one-on-one with linebackers, that they might be able to outrun. So it'll be an interesting strategic battle here between the coaches to see who can adjust in this game.
Boy, for anybody that's played NCAA football 14, they love that read option. Defensive end crashes, pull the ball, baby, and take it to the outside. And the West Virginia just needs to hit on a couple of these things.
We finally have, and we've been running that for 4 years under Neil Brown, but we've done it without a quarterback. You knew the quarterback wasn't going to tuck the ball and run, so they didn't have to worry about that. Now they do. So that is an added element that these defenses have to worry about. And I'm not saying Penn State can't handle it or anything like that, but it is a challenge for any defense to handle a quarterback who's that fast. And Garrett Green runs a 4.5, so it's not like he's not slow. So if he gets on the outside or gets by you, he can go for a long one.
Here's the deal about this ball game is when you go into a place like Penn State, when you go in there at night, when you go in there first game of the year, a lot of excitement building. We know the type of environment here in Big Ten country that Happy Valley is. For me, I believe West Virginia, the more 3-and-outs they get over the course of this game, the more this crowd is just going to build and build and build. When you're an underdog, a big underdog team like West Virginia, you need to get it going early. If West Virginia does not get multiple first down, puts points on the board early, I believe this one's going to get out of hand and could get out of hand quick. Do you kind of agree with that sentiment that West Virginia needs to come out with a hot start?
Absolutely. They need to control the clock, keep the ball out of Drew Allar's hands, and hold on to the ball as long as possible. Like you and I mentioned, take advantage of that new clock rule where the clock doesn't stop after first downs, and just keep feeding the rock to your running backs. Obviously you're going to have to throw it some as well, but ball control is, in my opinion, ball control is the way West Virginia needs to win this game.
Let's talk about this rivalry. Yes, it is a rivalry, Penn State and West Virginia. Even though they haven't played since 1992, Penn State has only lost 9 of their 59 all-time matchups. James Franklin said in his press conference that maybe this one doesn't have the most heat behind it in terms of kind of talking to the kids about the history of this matchup. How do Mountaineer fans view this reignition of this old battle between Eastern independents from back in the day?
Honestly, it depends on what generation you grew up in. The last time they played, I was 12. So my age, middle age and down, we don't really view it as a big rivalry because we don't remember them playing. Haven't played them in over 30 years, or about 30 years, somewhere in that range. So yeah, we don't view it. But if you talk to someone, an older West Virginia fan, in a generation ahead of like my parents' generation, for example, they probably look at it as a rivalry. I was actually interviewing a former West Virginia player on my show yesterday, and he thinks it's a huge rivalry. He said when he played, this game was as big as the Pitt game almost. So to them, it's a rivalry. But to me and to the younger generation, it's not. I don't think it is. So I tend to agree with Franklin. When you don't play that long, and especially when it's that one-sided, it's fair not to view it as a rivalry. Now, some of my fellow West Virginia fans might get mad at me for saying that, but that's how I feel.
Should be a great game. I'm looking forward to this one. Earlier on in the offseason, I'd be like, chalk it up as a 25, 30-point win. The more time that goes by, as we mentioned here during this preview, there's maybe one thing here, quarterback run game, 5 returning offensive linemen. There's a couple of things to maybe keep an eye on this one. Couz, thanks for joining me. If you haven't checked out Couz's Corner as well, it's a great resource for not only West Virginia fans, but college football fans as well. Thanks for joining me here today.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's an honor to be on your show, Ted. Keep up the good work, man.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.